you've navigated your way to your school's home page. If you haven't, pause the video and get there now. You'll find on this home page everything you need to generate your reports. So you've got the statistics for the school year. You notice that I haven't used it this year. The products that I have on my license, early years maths, Pat Maths 4th edition, which is the standard, reading and vocab. The Pat Teaching Resources Centre, it's worth having a look at. You'll notice that during COVID-19, they have some teacher support. Some schools are subscribed to this, some aren't. It is quite expensive, and I can give you information about how to find that sort of information. Okay, so what we're going to do is look at our school's students. These are all the students in the school by year level. You'll notice that I've got in brackets 2019. I haven't rolled over my students to 2020 yet. That doesn't matter because I know what students I'm looking for. I'm going to generate a report for the year 6s this year, which are the year 5s from last year. Find by year level, and I'm going to go to the year 5s from last year. So year 5, 2019. And you can see there are 34 students. Now, make sure you select those students because there's no way you're going to be able to work with them until you've selected them. So I'm going to generate a report. Now I can choose from Pat Maths and Pat Reading. 66 have done the Pat Maths, 31 have done the Pat Reading. Of course, I'm interested in maths. So I'm going to go to that. There are 4 types of reports that I can get. I can get the test usage. That's just who's done what test. The bands report, who has achieved what band. The longitudinal report I'll do in another video. That is your growth report. Very, very good. And finally, I'm going to do the group report. So I'm going to click on group report, and I'd like the group, they did it 4th edition, and you'll notice that they did different tests. 31 did test 5, 28 did test 4. Now I've got 34 students, so I'm assuming that this lot did it last year, and then they did test 4 the year before. Because there's so few results here, I would suggest that these are the students that have really struggled and they've been given lower tests. Now we can look at those and we can compare them to these ones. But I'm going to look at test 5. And you'll notice that confirms they were done in October 2019. So I'm going to generate the report from that. Now don't sit here waiting for 2 hours to view the report. I've done that. View the report. All right. Hopefully you've got something that looks like this. Now, this is a really good time to have a play with your data. I'm going to, in this video, just show you how to order the data and what to do with it. In the next one, we'll talk about how you analyze it. But let's have a look at what you can do with it. First of all, students' names in alphabetical order. Of course, I've blurred them out. The date that they did the test, their raw score, and we've talked about the fact that the raw score is fairly useless. We don't really need to know that. The scale score is a very important score. Now, you'll notice that the percentile and stannine are not there. Now, the reason for that, as we've discussed, is that we have to compare it to something. So we go up to here and it says compare student results to. Because these children were in year 5 and they did it at the end of the year, we can compare it to year 5s at the end of the year. All right. If you have a student, maybe one of those students that did test 3, we could still go up and compare them to other year 5s. You can see you're given an option as to who you want to compare them to. So we're comparing them to year 5s, and you'll notice that their percentile scores and their stannine scores have come up, and you can have a play with comparing them too. Now, everything is able to be ordered. So you can actually put the students in order of scale score. So if I click on scale score, I can go from lowest to highest, or I can change it around from highest to lowest. All right, so you'll notice that no one got a STAININE 9. The highest was a STAININE 8 in the 91st percentile. And in this case, the lowest was a STAININE 2. That actually gives us enough information. That student could possibly do test 4 for a little bit more accuracy, but it's fairly accurate. These, as far as I'm concerned, these students did the right test. Right, so I'm going to put them in, let's put them in scale score order, because that's the most accurate. All right, then what I can do is let's have a look at the questions. You'll notice that they're in order by question number. I can put them in order by question difficulty. So this number here tells us how difficult the question was, and it's actually related to the scale score. So the question difficulty ranges, the easiest was 100.5, and the hardest is 134.8. All right, so I usually put them from easiest to hardest just to have a look, and you can see from my view that, you know, the easier the question, the more people get it right. I've gone back to my original orders now, and I'm just going to show you a couple of other things before we actually get into our analysis. Okay, so the percentage correct within the group, I find this really helpful. If I click on that, I can see that 13% of my students got question 14 right. Now, that's interesting for a start. 13% of my students is only 4 students. So only 4 students out of the 31 of them got this question right. And it is a pretty hard question. 16%, so only 5 students got question 15 right. It's a bit easier, right? There are others harder that more people got right. So let's have a look at that. And I'm not going to go into great detail. We'll go into this later on, but I can click on the preview and I can see that it's that they say that it's a geometry question, and then the substrand is location and transformation. So you can see Leo starts from a tree. He walks 20 meters east, then 30 meters west, then 70 meters east. How far is he from the tree? And so I can see that only 5 students got it right. 20 students got it wrong, but put the same answer. The answer was 120. Obviously, these students added up. They didn't actually answer the question, how far is he from the tree? They've answered the question, how far did he walk? All right, so that tells me that maybe they don't understand the east and west, but also they are not looking at what the question's asking and answering the question that's asked. So there's really 2 things that need to be addressed in a question like this. We'll go into that in more detail later on. All right, so I find this really interesting, and I'm going to get you to make some comments after this session, just on what you find interesting, other things that you'd like to know. Jot down anything that you get excited about. I got quite excited when it gives me the power to look at a question and really dissect it and really see what's going on with my students learning and therefore my teaching. On the other hand, I can flip over to the percentage correct within the group and see what I'm doing well and what my students are doing well. So this one's, obviously the easiest one, and it's 13 points easier than the next one. So I'm not even, only 1 student got that wrong anyhow. So let's have a look at this one. It's a probability question. All right, what kind of animal has the smallest chance of being taken out? And there is really no pattern for that. What I like is that you could actually talk to the students that got this one wrong and just see what their thinking is, just in case there is a misconception and it's not just a calculation error. So personally, I think the relationship between this percentage correct within the group and the question difficulty is actually really important. So if I go, let's have a look at this one, 129.5. That's a reasonably difficult question. Over half of the students got it right. So that must be something that I'm doing well. So if 5 divided by something equals 1, what does 20 divided by that same number? Wow, this is really, if that said X, that would be year 7, 8 algebra. And over half of my students got it correct. So I'd be pretty happy with that. Something else to keep in mind, let's go back to there. Something else to keep in mind is that not all of my year 5 students have done this test. So this isn't a list of all my year 5 students. So if I'm looking at my teaching overall and the students learning overall, I need to include the other students. I know for a fact one of these year 5s got 100%. They got a stay 9 for test 6. They weren't even given test 5. They're that good. And I want to include that student when I'm starting to think about the class as a whole. That's obviously a student that's going to need some differentiation. Likewise with perhaps the students that struggled, and we can see where they fit with the rest of the class, so that when we're starting to differentiate, we can put them together in groups. Just to review, we can arrange by scale score from lowest to highest. You can arrange by percentile. The question number is how it's arranged in the first place. And then you can rearrange the percentage correct, the strand, the question difficulty. Now, you can download this onto an Excel file. You can get your individual student reports, but the Excel file is really handy if you want to do a Gutmann analysis. And I'll talk about that in the next session. But I find that really handy, and especially if you want to download this sort of information into your own mark books. And the viewing the charts, so you can see just how they performed. Measurement and geometry are 2 areas that probably need a bit of work. When we're talking about students that we're differentiating with, that's where your data wall can come into play as well. You can actually compare the scale score, whether they've done the same test or not. So next we'll look a little bit more deeply into the analysis. Make some notes about any questions or queries or exciting things that you've found, anything that you'd like to go into in more detail, just write them down.